Hi everyone, welcome to the introductory video looking at adjectives in our Agēre grammar series. We're going to start by touching on something that we haven't needed to consider thus far in looking at nouns and verbs, and that is gender. Noun gender is a way of looking at a sentence and knowing which nouns are attached to which other parts of speech, like adjectives and definite and indefinite articles. Broadly speaking, there are three genders: animate, inanimate, and neuter, and nouns from each declension will find themselves in one of these three genders. Typically, nouns from the first and second declensions are animate, nouns from the third and fourth are inanimate, and nouns from the fifth are always neuter. But what does this actually mean for nouns to have these genders? Well, if we look at the adjective therosan, which means sweet or endearing, we can see that there are three separate forms of the adjective which correspond to the three separate genders. So let's say you want to say a sweet person. You would say uate therosan, but you wouldn't say ireod therosan to mean a sweet river. Ireod comes in the third declension, it's inanimate, so it takes therosen. Similarly, aulas, which means creation, wouldn't take therosan or therosen, it would take therosmas. It's important to note as well that this applies across case and number, so that the accusative forms would be therosmear, therosmer, and therosmate. Now, the citation form for an adjective will consist of the animate nominative singular, the inanimate nominative singular, the neuter nominative singular, as well as identifying the part of speech, the inflection pattern, and a translation. The stem can be found always by looking at the neuter nominative singular and removing the final vowel, which will be a, e, or u, and s. So if we wanted to make the animate accusative singular, we would take therosmas, remove as, have therosme, and then add the appropriate ending er to have therosmear. An important distinction that should be made as well is that of adjective class. So let's take the sentence deolis araru patar pear. Deolis means I see, arar means the, patar is the accusative singular form of uate, which means person, and pear means tall or long. Pear is the animate accusative singular form of pepe pas, so we take our neuter, pas, we remove as, and we add the animate accusative singular ending ar. Now let's say that we wanted to say I see this small person, in which case we would say deolis arar patar tar. But why tar instead of tear? This is because tar comes from tis, which means small or short, and you can see in the brackets that this belongs to the second adjective class. The animate nominative singular of class 2 adjectives does not form its ending in ar, but rather ar. And finally, if we take the sentence deoles araru patar keor, which means I see the fat or the large person, keor comes from ko ke kus, which is an adjective of the third class, and which makes its animate nominative singular in eor rather than ar or ar. There are historical reasons for this, which we may get into at some point in the series, but for all intents and purposes, just remember that there are three separate classes. This will be obvious from the citation form, and pay attention because the class that the adjective falls into will determine the pattern of endings that it takes according to gender, case, and number. And that's it for this overview video on adjectives. In the next video, we're going to be focusing in on adjectives of the first class. See you then.